Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Broadcasting live from North Nashville, Tennessee. North Nashville spans from Metro Center down to the border of Bicentennial Mall, including the neighborhoods of Bordeaux, Buena Vista, Parkwood Estates, Germantown, Haynes Manor, Jefferson Street, Fisk Park, Cumberland Gardens, Oak Valley, Enchanted Hill, and many others. It's perhaps best known for the 3 universities housed here, including Tennessee State University, Fisk University, and Meharry Medical College. North Nashville is also home to the Tennessee Titans practice facility. The Tennessee Titans will begin construction on an expansion project at St. Thomas Sports Park, which will almost double its current footprint in Nashville's Metro Center neighborhood. The plan includes 60,000 square feet in additions, including a new building situated along one of the practice fields, and major renovation of spaces within the existing 75,000 square foot building.
Now live from North Nashville, Dr. William Head. Let's talk about it.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It on NorthNashvilleTV.com, the voice of the voiceless and the voice of health. And today we have, as usual, Dr. Paul Newhouse. Doc, how's your golf game?
I don't play golf, but if I did, I'm sure it would be doing fine.
Hello, my name is Glenn Carter. I'm the owner here at Carter's Family Florist. We've been serving over Nashville and the middle of Tennessee for the last 25 years. We do flowers for all occasions. We do weddings, funerals. We send flowers out of town. I have a host of plants, corsage for the prom, a dozen roses at Valentine, a dozen roses for Mother's Day. We do balloons, fruit baskets, and things of that nature, and we do deliver. So always come to Carter's Family Florist when you're in need of your flower needs. Address is 1822 26th Avenue North. That's Nashville, Tennessee, 37208. My phone number is 615-256-3777. Thank you for choosing Carter's Family Florist.
The Tennessee Tribune is an African-American newspaper in Nashville, Tennessee. Its circulation is statewide: Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Memphis, Tennessee. It was founded in 1991 by Rosetta Irvin Miller Perry. Each week more than 150,000 Tennesseans read the Tennessee Tribune to keep a watchful eye on news and events shaping our community. They turn to the Tribune because it speaks to their needs with language and perspective, which reflects their way of life. Unlike other weeklies that have lost touch with important issues facing today's Black families, the Tribune offers a fresh and encouraging view on people and events that have a positive impact.
I'm Rosetta Miller Perry. I'm the publisher and CEO of the Tennessee Tribune newspaper. I've been in business for over 30 years. I started this business because I felt that the community needed to see information and read about all our wonderful businesses and other individuals in our community that have made positive steps and had positive influences upon our community.
We've had some developments since we last talked to you. So I'll let you rattle off what developments that you see fit to tell us today.
Well, so Alzheimer's disease treatment continues to expand. When we talked last time, Dr. Head, we talked about the new medications that were being developed and just being rolled out, actually, when we last spoke. I think they are now fully rolled out here in Nashville. We have increasing access to those medications for people who have early onset or early stages of Alzheimer's disease. We have a lot of patients who are getting those infusion treatments, and hopefully we are starting to see some benefit for those patients. Still early days, but I think the chances are very good. The field is advancing rapidly. I think you're going to see changes in the way that that medication is administered. I think it's going to become easier this year. I know one of the drugs is looking to be administered through the skin and not require an infusion anymore.
Wow,
We hope
that will make a lot of folks
that
happy.
will help it enormously, because people won't have to come to specialized centers to do it. They could do it in their own home. We hope to see that by the middle of the year, with the first potential approval of a subcutaneous administration of one of these antibody treatments for Alzheimer's disease. So that's very exciting. The Alzheimer's Clinical Trials Consortium, which Vanderbilt is a member of and member site of, is getting ready to launch combination treatment studies. So we're going to see the standard treatments now, like the monoclonal antibodies, together with additional treatments to double, hopefully get more bang for the buck, to stop this disease and slow it down. So that's
a good
exciting.
one. That's great.
We're calling it COMBAT, Combined Alzheimer Therapy, or COMBAT. We want to combat
You must have
Alzheimer's
named
disease.
that.
Now, I can't take credit for that one, actually. I have to give that one to someone else. But it's a good acronym. So that's very exciting. Here at the Center for Cognitive Medicine, we're doing a number of very exciting new initiatives. One of the initiatives that we've developed is to actually reach out to our friends and neighbors who have Down syndrome. And the reason that is because Down syndrome is essentially a genetic form of Alzheimer's disease. And so because of the extra chromosome, that's where the gene for amyloid lives. And so because of that, folks with Down syndrome have a very high risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And so we, along with people around the world, are very excited about the possibility of slowing down or even stopping the development of Alzheimer's disease in this genetically linked version of the disease. And so we have a number of programs that are initiated now. We're starting some state-of-the-art treatments using even things like silencing that gene to see if we can turn off the switch. That's really exciting. Vaccine strategies with these folks to reduce their level of amyloid in the brain. So there's a lot of exciting things that are happening in this particular population, and we're very fortunate to be collaborating with an international consortium of groups that are studying folks with Down syndrome. So that's great. Another effort we've made is to look at the opposite end of the life cycle, if you will, for Alzheimer's disease. So we know Alzheimer's disease treatment can't just be when someone has a new diagnosis, that this disease can progress. And so we want to alleviate distress at all levels of this illness. And one way to do that is a study called LIBBY, which is focused on end-of-life care. How can we improve care at the end of life? And so we are focused on a new treatment, new potential medication treatment that will ease the distress of people in the later or end stages of this disease, because we know that it's progressive for many people. I lost my own father last year due to Alzheimer's disease, and he definitely had distress at the end of his life. And so for all of these patients, we're collaborating now on a multi-center study to ease that passing for them and make that more comfortable for everyone. So that's an exciting effort. We continue with the studies where we're trying to prevent Alzheimer's disease in patients that are, or individuals who are otherwise normal but have elevated levels of amyloid in their brain. That continues. We're very, that study has now closed to enrollment, but we're going to be following those people for several years. We are launching new medication studies of additional medications with a kind of a different take on the Alzheimer's problem. We are launching a program called START, which is attacking kind of a different part of the elephant. We're all trying to grab pieces of this big disease elephant, and so we have to have numerous ways to try to attack this, just like we would for a cancer, right? You don't take one treatment for cancer, you take multiple things that try to attack that disease, and that's the strategy we're taking here. So you're going to see more and more of these kinds of combination approaches that we're going to be doing over the next several years. So it's pretty exciting times.
It sounds like it. The last time we talked a little bit about the manipulation of genes in a biochemical reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to elevate the utilization of that particular approach, or is that entirely different from what you're talking about now?
Well, as my Polish colleague used to say, it's the same but a little bit different.
Okay.
One of the approaches that we're taking in our friends with Down syndrome is gene silencing.
Okay.
So the idea is that you use a small protein that actually gloms onto this extra copy of the gene and turns it off, like a switch.
Wow.
Now, this approach has been used in some rare childhood inherited neurologic diseases. So it's not completely new, but it's the first time it's ever been applied to Alzheimer's disease. But I think you're going to see more of these kinds of genetic approaches, getting right to where the problem is. So I think people are getting confident enough about how to manipulate these kinds of genetic processes to where they can, turn them off a little bit. We're starting to see this in cancer as well. So, we're a little bit late to the party, I think, in terms of genetic change, but I think we can utilize it.
Any manipulation of genetic tissue or what have you,
Chromosomes, yeah.
tends to bring to mind the mad scientist in us.
Right.
And-
Makes people nervous, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you look at science. If science is a continual effort to improve, it is simply something that's moving forward and not sitting where you are. If you are conservative and you want something to stand still, everybody else passes by you and you're sitting there in the middle of the interstate in your Honda, 1965 Honda, wondering what's going to happen. I think it's more of a moral issue with a lot of people.
Right.
And whether or not if it's ethical, and of course ethics and morals seem to have been thrown out the window anyway, but for us who still cling to the fact that doing right is the right thing.
Right. What I think I would clarify here, and maybe I should have been more precise in my language, is that we're not modifying genes. So your genes are your genes. Nobody's talking about modifying anyone's genetics. All we're doing is trying to turn off something that is now pathological, right? So when people get treated for cancer, we know that many of those cancers are defined by a mutation, right? In a gene that makes a cancer cell makes a cell become cancerous, right? They have a mutation. Mm-hmm. And what we want to do is turn off those aberrant, those incorrect genetic messages. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're not actually changing anyone's genes. What we're trying to do is suppress essentially a broken record. So you have an electronic thing on your car that is not performing well because it's sending out the wrong signal, and some guy comes in and he replaces that or he blocks that. That's what we're attempting to do here. We're not trying to modify anyone's genetics. We're simply trying to turn off something that's sending the wrong signal.
As one who believes in science, keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
As we've seen in the last month, 5 weeks, the people who are at the top of the scientific community are now being hammered by someone who has no scientific background at all as person in charge of keeping the country healthy.
Right.
Where does that leave you and your colleagues in your effort to carry on these investigations?
Well, we are in very uncertain times now. We have a new administration. They have certain priorities. It's not always clear that we understand what those priorities are yet. I'm not even sure they know fully what their priorities are.
I would say you're absolutely right.
I think we have to be able to explain to them and to the people of this country the value of what we're doing. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. When someone says, well, we're giving you hundreds of millions of dollars, what do we get for that? We should be able to explain the amazing advances that we've made based on the science that the American people have funded for us. And so I think it's quite reasonable to say we need to do a better job of communicating the value of what we do. I think I remain optimistic that once we fully explain to those who are now in this new administration the value of what we do, that I think they will see that. And I think we're in a temporary sort of topsy-turvy period where everyone's very anxious and worried and upset in the scientific community because the apple cart just got turned over. But hopefully we will put the apples back on the cart, and after some uncertain period of time, we will be able to continue our work. And that's what we're planning for. We're planning to continue our work, to put our heads down and do what we think is best for our patients and to cure this terrible disease. We've made tremendous progress. We've had some setbacks, there's no question about it. We've had some bad actors, that has occurred, but those actually have not derailed the progress we've made. So yes, we've had some problems. Those have been identified and some have been called out. Some people have not been as honest as they should have been. But that has not changed any of the value of what we've done. That those mistakes have been identified, they've been culled out, and it hasn't changed the progress of what we've done.
Well, you took all the lightning out of my next question. The scientific community has been attacked recently,
Right.
based upon the quality and the generalizability of what you do. And added to that, now with the obvious dislike that the current administration has for people of color, it's going to leave people who look like me out of the research, which means whatever you develop may not be applicable to us. So as you look at the criticism that scientific community has had of recent, what do you think the damage has been?
Well, I do think that we are committed as a field. In fact, I am sure of this, that we remain committed to bringing our treatments to every community, to communities of color, to communities of ethnic diversity. We are committed to making sure that our trials and our studies represent the communities that we serve. And I just came from a half-a-day meeting of our Alzheimer's Disease Research Center External Advisory Committee, and we as a center are fully committed to driving forward and including all of the underrepresented communities in our work. So I don't think that's going to change. I think that we maybe have to be more careful in our language, but to make sure that we're not misunderstood. But I do not see even the current administration as threatening that commitment. So I think we here at Vanderbilt are fully committed to our work, particularly with the African American community here in Nashville and in the whole Middle Tennessee region, and I don't think that's going to change.
Let me first say I'm hopeful that you're right. Early on in our discussions, we talked about the identification of amyloid protein as the probable cause of the progression of the disease.
That's correct.
You're now saying that it develops over, well, you've already said that it develops over a continuum. It is not a boom, right on you thing.
That's right.
It's more that you accumulate these proteins. How far in front of what we expect to be the tipping point for an individual can we start to approach treating the disease?
It's a fascinating question. If I knew the answer to that, I'd probably win the Nobel Prize. But I can tell you that I think we are beginning to work that out. So in the AHEAD study, which we've talked about before on this show, we are starting, 5 to 10 years. It differs for each person, right? But we think 5 to 10 years before they will start to have memory symptoms. Now, if that study reads out positive, and we won't know till 2028, I think,
Okay.
when it reads out. But if that study's positive, we know that at least when you're in your mid-50s, we could start to treat somebody, right? Could we go back even further? Could we go back 20 years? That gets harder because now the difference between normal and abnormal gets smaller and smaller as you go back in time. So you look at someone in their 30s or their 20s or their 40s and you say, well, should I put that person on 25 years of treatment when I don't know that they will ever develop that extra amyloid protein? I think that's the question we don't know how to understand. So the reason the AHEAD study starts in the mid-50s is because we think the trade-off at that age is going to be much better in terms of risk versus benefit. Because no treatment is risk-free, right? So it's one thing, if you have a disease and I prescribe a treatment for you, you understand the risk-benefit because you already have a diagnosis. But when I'm treating somebody for prevention of an illness, now the whole risk-benefit calculus really changes. I have to make sure my treatment is safe in the long run, right? Because I'm trying to prevent something that somebody doesn't even have yet. So that becomes part of the calculus.
And you can't really identify, as you just said, early on if they have a problem.
That's right. It gets harder and harder the farther back you go.
The younger the person is. Yeah.
So, for example, I take a statin to reduce my, cholesterol and lipids. Now, I've never had heart disease due to cholesterol. But my doctor said, well, these are pretty safe drugs, so it's pretty worth it for you. It's kind of low-hanging fruit to take that for prevention for a long time. But if that drug wasn't so safe, then there might be some questions about whether it's smart or not, right? Because he doesn't know, or she doesn't know if I'm ever going to develop heart disease. But she said, well, it's pretty low risk. Let's do it. Okay. I think we have to think of it in terms of risk versus benefit. And the farther back we go, do we go all the way back to childhood? Now, for some things, we might. Like for Down syndrome, that could be even a possibility because it looks like because of that extra chromosome, they start building amyloid quite early in life, maybe in their teens even. They start to develop that amyloid protein.
Well, as I hear you talk about a genetic approach to Alzheimer's, I hear a genetic approach to any, I don't want to say mental, but any genetic issue that you find in a child. Is that that may not be applicable?
That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse.
Flight of fancy.
That's a wheelhouse. But there are other neurologic diseases of aging that are not Alzheimer's disease, right? And we know that some of them have genetic causes, actually. So there's an entity called frontotemporal dementia, and many of those cases are genetically linked, actually. We even know where the mutation is. And if we could find a way to correct that or turn that off, we could actually perhaps stop that disease before it ever develops. Huntington's disease is another example. We know the genetic cause. And I just read the other day, I think maybe even just yesterday when I was flying back to Nashville on the plane, about this new study that they think they might be able to actually not turn off, but maybe basically make that gene silent.
All right. then there is the genetic predisposition. In other words, what your mother and father give you.
That's right.
If both your parents had memory loss, Alzheimer's,
Right.
Is there any in all of your treatment? Is there anything that indicates that it is passed on to the next generation?
Right. Actually, that's a good question, and I should clarify that. So there's a gene that all of us have called ApoE, APOE, and it's a gene it's a protein that's involved in cholesterol metabolism. And one version of that gene, the ApoE4 version, increases your risk of developing Alzheimer's. It's by far the most common genetic risk factor. About 3 to 4 in 10 of us have at least one copy of ApoE4. All right? So it's the most common population risk factor gene. Now, I was talking to a group last week who said, look, Dr. Newhouse, I have a company here that is trying to develop a way to turn off that ApoE4. And what would you think about a treatment that would turn off that ApoE4 gene? And I said, well, if you have only one copy and you've got another copy that's good, ApoE3 or ApoE2, maybe that would be fine because you're turning off the copy of the gene that doesn't work so well. We think what's wrong with ApoE4 is that it's just not very efficient at clearing amyloid. It helps, ApoE4 lets the brain kind of accumulate this junk. It doesn't clean it up well enough. ApoE3 seems to do a better job, ApoE2 even better. And so this guy said to me, could we just turn off ApoE4? And I said, well, I don't know what the long-term consequences of that would be, especially for someone who has 2 copies of ApoE4. So we sort of batted it back and forth, I think. But I think you've hit on exactly what could be relevant to most of us, which is these genes that you and I have which either increase our risk or decrease our risk. Because some of us may actually have genetic profiles that decrease our risk of Alzheimer's disease, that somehow protect us. We call it resilience genes, genes that actually increase your resilience to a disease. And Dr. Tim Holman and Dr. Logan Dumitrescu here at Vanderbilt are really, that's their area of research. They focus on looking for genes of resilience. Can we find targets to actually develop new treatments to improve the activity of those genes, make them work even better to protect us? Because maybe I don't have to shut off all the bad genes. Maybe I could just do a little balance where I increase genes that message that increases resilience and decrease the ones that increase disease. So we try to rebalance you. I mean, we're a long ways from being able. We're a long ways from being able to do this.
We're out in space now.
We're out on the periphery here. As the pilots say, we're pushing the envelope.
But when I was in elementary school, we used to get a document called a weekly reader. And the weekly reader had all these projections in 1980, this and this and this, and in the year 2000, and we're sitting.
We'll be flying cars.
Everybody will have an aircraft to go to work and go to school. Anyway, as you look at science fiction, a lot of things. My favorite science fiction thing was Dick Tracy's wristwatch radio. Haven't bought one yet. I've been.
Well, we got it. I got it right here. It's called an Apple Watch. I can talk to people on my watch.
On your watch. So when you look at what we were reading 50, 60 years ago, that was, oh my gosh, this could never happen. And you see it happening. So when you look at things that were incurable, when you look at things that were insurmountable, when you look at things that led nowhere but to the grave, if you will. When you look at youngsters, when I was a kid, again, in braces because of polio, you know, you'd say, "Oh man, that's awful." No, you very seldom see anybody with polio, and all of those things in a scientific world simply point to the fact that research, development, and implementation of things that are way off in the future are out there somewhere. So the notion that science is somehow not paying its due seems to me to be totally without reason. And that was William Head's editorial for today.
Okay. I was gonna, if I can respond, I was gonna say we've made tremendous progress, right? Over my lifetime, over your lifetime, from when we were kids, because you and I are pretty close to the same age, and we've made tremendous medical progress. My brother passed away of cancer in 1981. I think he would have beat that today. And I think that we've made tremendous advances in medical care. Are they being threatened by trends in the current country? I worry about that, but I remain optimistic that the good sense of all of us will prevail in the end, and we will maintain that progress towards making ever better treatments for patients with Alzheimer's disease.
We're usually through by this time, but I've got to ask this question, and you've addressed it before. When I walk in the room and when I walk through the door, I've got something on my mind, and as soon as I walk in the room, I go blank. Now, all of us do it.
Sure.
So, explain for the audience that that is not Alzheimer's.
That is not Alzheimer's disease, correct. So we all forget. We all occasionally can't come up with a word or a name. It happens to all of us. In fact, the more we know, the more often we will notice that it happens, right? And we know more as we age, actually. Knowledge actually increases all the way to the end of life. And we have more wisdom now as we age.
We hope so.
We hope so. So wisdom, I define wisdom as knowledge with context. And,
we hope so.
And so I think that occasional forgetfulness or walking into a room and not remembering what you were thinking about is not a particular concern. What I worry about is when other people start to notice a pattern of being forgetful. Now, and with it being a change from the way it was before, then I get more concerned. You know, I always ask my patients' family members, is your mom's memory as good today as it was 2 years ago? And if the answer to that is no, then I get concerned.
Okay.
That's the way I would put it.
And so, all you folks that are watching us, you don't have Alzheimer's, you just have old timers.
Old timers, there you go. Yeah.
I am glad to always get an opportunity to speak with you.
I enjoy it. I enjoy our conversations together.
Your research is extremely interesting, and what you've accomplished is amazing. So we will see you again the next time she says, and I'm pointing at his chief assistant, don't smile, and she'll let me know when you're coming to town, and we'll snatch you up again.
Always happy to.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching Let's Talk About It on NorthNashvilleTV.com. I am your host, William Head, and this is the good Dr. Newhouse.
Thank you, folks.